What's up, guys? So I thought this would be a good week to jump on the hype train a little bit and talk about one of my more recent purchases, a Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I'm not this kind of a reviewer, really. I'm not very well versed in tech specs and processors and all this junk. Some of those things that somebody who's looking for a real in-depth review of the Switch 2 is actually after. But I am a person, just like you guys, and I have experiences and things that I like when it comes to games and game systems and things that I appreciate and things that I don't. Instead of calling this a review, this is going to be more of a first impressions, 2 weeks with kind of thing for the system. I want to talk about some of the things that I like about this, especially compared to the original Switch, but I don't want to just gush the entire time. You know, there are things that I don't really like, and I want to discuss those as well. So let's jump right in and let's talk about it. When it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, I'm not without my complaints, and I think a big one that I have and a big one that a lot of people have with it is the battery performance of the Switch 2. I did a little bit of playing around with that just to kind of see what it's capable of. I've been playing Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition on my Switch 2 recently, and I wanted to see what that would do with the Switch game and also what it would do with the new Mario Kart game. I started my test with my Switch 2 at 86% battery, and I played the game for 15 or so minutes, and by the time I went back to check, I was down to 79%. So I was quest hunting around the Aerith Sea and kind of just exploring around and fighting a bunch of monsters. So doing that for about 15 minutes used about 7% of battery. And so playing a game like Xenoblade, you'll get just a little under 4 hours of playtime on it. But then I switched over to Mario Kart, and playing Mario Kart Online really chewed the battery. The battery had gotten down to 75% whenever I started Mario Kart. I went to do some online races. I didn't do Knockout Tour, but I did like the Grand Prix races. And 12 minutes of playtime, the battery dropped from 75 to 67%. That's 8% in 10 minutes. So you're going to chew through your battery pretty quickly if you're playing Mario Kart Online. Now, having said that, I did have my brightness up really high. Not full blast, but still up very high. If I were trying to conserve battery, it would probably be a lot lower, kind of in this general area. So just keep that in mind. If you have your brightness cranked, you're going to drain through that battery really quickly. Like, it's a very nice screen, but having the brightness up like that really does chew through the battery. My next complaint is really about the finish on the Switch 2. Now, I do love this matte finish. It does feel really good against the hand. The problem with it is this type of finish tends to be a bit more slippery. It's not really that it's slippery, it's just it's harder for your fingers to grip onto it. Like, it wants to slide through your hands. Now, the original Switch, holding it here, the back it was a bit more glossy, so it was a bit grippier and just easier to keep a hold of. Now, maybe that's just because my Switch is 7 years old at this point, and maybe I've worn some of the finish down, but it's always been just a little easier to keep a hold of because my fingers don't want to slip off of it. It just wants to hold on to it, you know? Outside of the slippiness of it, though, this finish does feel a lot better in the hands on the Switch 2. So I do appreciate that. I also like how the finish is consistent, because on the Switch 1, again, this one's old, so my hands have been on these a lot, but on the Switch 1, this finish and this finish has always felt just a little bit different, so the consistent look and the consistent finish of the Switch 2 is very nice. Now, something about the Switch 2 that I really appreciate is actually the size of it, because I'm getting older. My eyes are getting worse every day. Having just a bigger screen to look at to play my games is nice if I'm playing handheld. Having this bigger screen is just all around nicer to look at. It's the same reason why I struggle to go back and play Game Boy games on original hardware when I have my analog pocket. The screen is just bigger, so it's nicer to actually use. And speaking of bigger and nicer to actually use, the new Joy-Cons are bigger and they just feel better in the hand. They exaggerated the little bump out for the ZL and ZR buttons, but because they're bigger, they actually just, for my hands at least, they actually just line up much better with where I would want them to be whenever I'm playing games, especially using the grip that comes with the system. Slotting these into this is fine. Like, using this is just fine. The original Switch I had a lot of issue with using the Joy-Con grip. They are significantly smaller, so this just got cramped up, but with the extra size of the Joy-Con 2 here, this just feels really good. Like, whenever April and I play the new Mario Kart together, I give her my Pro Controller and I use this, and I'm perfectly happy. But one more positive of the size of this system in use in handheld mode, it's a lot more comfortable to hold than the original Switch was. The original Switch always felt just the tiniest bit cramped to me, especially the right joystick over here. Using the right stick always felt just a little bit cramped to have to like contort my thumb down to actually play it. Whereas on the Switch 2, there's a lot more room for your hand on this, so you don't have to contort as much to get your thumb to where it needs to be. Like, just talking about a size comparison, I just want you to look at the difference between these two. Like, seriously, just look at the size difference. Here's the Switch 2, and here's the Switch 1. How much bigger that is. And that's just the body. Let's look at the screen size. That is a significant size improvement. But it's not just the systems, because the Joy-Con are significantly bigger as well. And because of that, these just do feel a whole lot better in the hands. Another positive of this guy is given the increased size, I would have expected it to be a lot heavier. And it's actually really not. I would say it's comparably weighted to the Switch 1, which is very interesting to me that one be significantly bigger than the other and weigh about the same. Like, it is heavier, but it's not a lot heavier, you know? Another thing that I really appreciate about the Switch 2 is the magnetic release on the Joy-Cons. One, because it is just super satisfying whenever you're putting it on and just pops into place, or when you're taking it off and it just falls off when you want it to. Not only is that super satisfying, but it just feels a lot sturdier than the rail system on the Switch 1. While there was nothing particularly wrong with the rail system, it just feels like something that's going to be like a fracture point. Like if this thing were to fall off the table and land on the Joy-Con just so wrong, something in the rails or the rail part of the Joy-Con's gonna break, and that's not very good. Whereas with this, it feels like if this gets dropped and hits the floor wrong, they're just gonna separate instead of something accidentally breaking, which I think is a big improvement. I can't comment too much on the mouse mode on the controllers because I don't have any games yet that really use that feature. I've tried it on the menu and in the eShop, and it works fine. The pointer itself has the tiniest bit of delay, and I don't really think it's fair to call it delay. It's more of like mouse pointer needs to accelerate or something. So I'll be interested to see how that gets used in something like the new Metroid coming up, and I'm contemplating getting Cyberpunk so I can play through it, and I've heard that allows for mouse mode to be used, so I would be very interested to try it with something like a shooter. I noticed on the Switch 2 that the L and R buttons are curved over a lot more on the Switch 2 Joy-Cons than on the Switch Joy-Cons. As you can see on the Switch 1 Joy-Con here, the R button comes down just a little, about halfway down the curve on the side, whereas the Switch 2 Joy-Con, the R button comes all the way down here, and it's clickable the entire way up. And that's very good for mouse mode because whenever you're actually using it as a mouse, your hand is kind of just gonna rest on it. I don't know how you guys use your mice, but for me, I tend to use this middle segment of my finger here to press down on my key instead of the end of the finger. So that falls right where I like to press a mouse button. As you can see here, I use my whole finger to press the mouse. I don't just use the tip here. So that's really nice on something like this. A negative on mouse mode for this though is that this is an ergonomic nightmare. I know they gave us little skates that you can put on the bottoms of them to make them glide on your desk a little easier, and that's nice, but it doesn't do anything for stability in this direction. So I'm very much going to look into some kind of mouse form, like mouse mold for this to actually go into. That would make this a lot more comfortable to use for long sessions of a shooter like Cyberpunk or Metroid or Fortnite or whatever it is you like to play where you would want the mouse functionality of this. Now, I can't speak on this thing's lack of an OLED screen because I have never used a Switch with an OLED screen. My only comparison is to the original Switch, and this is a white box Switch. This was not a red box Switch, so I got mine before they did the battery improvements. And so if there was a screen improvement to that, then I don't know about that either. But the actual screen clarity on this guy is infinitely better, and it makes sense because this is a 1080p panel, whereas the original Switch I think was just a 720p panel. But again, I don't know a lot about the technical side of all of this to have a thorough opinion on it other than this looks infinitely better than this. But I feel like I can say that with some proof because, again, I've been playing Xenoblade recently. It did not get any kind of performance update for the Switch 2. So you're playing the Switch 1 version on the Switch 2, and it does look a lot better on the handheld screen. I remember when I got Xenoblade, I got it to play it handheld, and I never played it because I didn't really like how it looked on the Switch 1. But even though it still looks significantly worse on the handheld than it does docked, it at least looks good enough that it's still playable on the Switch 2 and handheld. So that's good. A couple little obvious pluses. The kickstand here is a lot better on this than it is on the original Switch. This is a bit more like the OLED one was, although this is this U-shaped thing instead of where the OLED I think had a full panel here that came out. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this kickstand is metal. I can't really tell, but it feels like it's metal. Overall, I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is a good successor system. I mean, it's exactly what we all wanted with a successor system. It's a Nintendo Switch, but better. Better in every way but battery life, which is annoying, but it's understandable given how much more is going on here. And it's also comparable to all the other like major handheld things out right now, like your Steam Decks and your Allies and your Legion Go's. And it's comparable battery life. I just wish that that aspect was a little better. Otherwise, I like it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of the Switch 2 down in the comments below. Let me know your pros, let me know your cons, let me know. Post it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you about it. But I think that's going to be it for me. Those are my first impressions after having the Switch 2 for 2 weeks. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to bringing you even more Game Talk videos just like this one as the days go on. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, and if you like what I do here, then hit subscribe because it helps me out a lot. But I think that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one, y'all.